Hello and welcome to the Fighting Spirit Podcast. As always, I'm Jason and I'm here to bring us the retrospective for Waterson versus Hill and a look forward to Covington versus Woodley, which will be an outstanding contest. In fact, the card is pretty stacked, if I'm honest. We have some great fights on there. Let's get into it though. Here's the show. Alright, so before we look forward, we gotta look back, and it's not the happiest, funnest look back that I've ever had. We went 5-7 on the card. Just not so great, honestly. 41 2/3% accuracy. Just not the best accuracy we've ever had. But let's talk about them, though, nevertheless. So the first one, and this is one that does hurt a little bit because I thought I had gotten it right. We talk about how I have a hard time, really nailing down an Angela Hill fight. And I thought we had an Angela Hill victory going into this one. It was a split decision. One of the calls, I think, was like 49-47 Waterson, which was a blown call in my opinion. But at the end of the day, they ended up giving it to Waterson. She scored one takedown. I think she attempted something like 10 or 12 of them. And ultimately, I thought Hill won the fight. I thought she was outstriking Waterson just enough. In fact, the numbers prove it, 131-128. And I don't think that one takedown was enough to say Waterson outdid Hill. Now, Hill did catch some bigger shots. I mean, there were some nice kicks. He gave her the sweet chin music Waterson did to Hill. And while it wasn't devastating in any way, it was a good point shot. And so, if you look at overall damage, maybe Waterson got it. But then if I look at the face of Waterson versus the face of Hill, I thought Waterson was wearing it worse. She looked more banged up, more beat up. And I think this was honestly a bad call overall. It was a close call. Let's, not mince words. It wasn't an outright robbery, but it was close, and I think the wrong fighter won this fight. In my personal opinion, it should have been Angela Hill. She's now lost two close decisions, two fights that I honestly thought she won in Gedalia and now at Waterson, so she'll definitely get another competitor. The UFC kind of knows that she is maybe getting robbed a little bit, or she's coming very close, razor's edge close to beating some of the best talent in the UFC. Either way, we'll see what's next for Waterson. She gets to go back to her winning ways, and Hill will just have to shake this bad luck that she's having. So hopefully we'll shake our bad luck too. But this is one we got incorrect. And one we definitely got right, not much to talk about here. Ottoman Azatar defeats Kamaworthy. Azatar just throws hard, man, and he gets some performance of the night money. Also, Waterson Hill got fighter of the night money. Scored a great knockout. Kamaworthy only got one punch off. Minute 33, and just excellent win. We did call that one correctly. And one that I did not call correctly, and I always have a hard time calling it, Roxanne Modafferi defeats Andrea Lee. And this one, though, looking at the numbers, is a little weird. Official stats here, 60 strikes to 97 for Lee. And then 3 takedowns Lee for Modafferi. Now, Modafferi did actually have a lot of ground control that I think is not really shown here in the stats, and I remember watching the fight, but it is odd to see such a lopsided set of numbers there. I mean, despite having the one additional takedown by Modafferi, she ended up getting the win. And it was a good win, honestly. I know the numbers are weird here. 60 to 90, that's weird. I'm surprised that Lee was, tallied up with so many more strikes. Anyways, unanimous decision. Ground control is the tail of the tape here, and Modafferi did a great job staying on top, and so she picks up an excellent win and gives us an L. And one that was really terribly called, not by the judges, but by the ref. Ed Herman ends up defeating Mike Rodriguez. Mike Rodriguez had knocked out, in my opinion, TKO'd Ed Herman in the second round. I think everybody's opinion. He said it was a low blow. The replay showed it was nowhere near to being a low blow, that Ed Herman had just been, lowered to the ground because of 2 knees. I think they were knees to the solar plexus. And Mike Rodriguez was going to go shut the door, but I believe Tyone stepped in. And we ended up seeing the third round where Ed Herman gets him on the ground and is able to lock up a Kimura. Bad luck for Rodriguez overall. He should have won this fight. He should have never got to the third round. Hell, it should have ended midway through the second. So we got this one wrong, but did we really get it wrong? I don't know. It was just a bad call. It just is what it is. It's another razor-thin fight, so it is what it is. And when we got wrong as well, Bobby Green defeats Alan Patrick. Patrick was not able to execute any takedowns for the most part, any of the ground game that he wanted to be playing, and Bobby Green was able to keep it standing and really, really outmatch Patrick on the feet. And ended up picking up a win. So I thought Patrick was going to be able to execute a little better in the ground game. He shot quick out of the gate, tried to get that takedown, and just did not go his way. And that was just kind of the tale of the whole 15-minute contest. One we did get correct, though. Billy Quartanillo defeats Kyle Nelson. He ends up knocking him out 7 minutes into the third round. Great shot here, puts him down on the mat, and Quartanillo was a great talent coming in. He will be a great talent going forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing more and more stuff out of that guy. He is a future prospect if there ever was one. One that we got wrong, though, is Sijara Eubanks defeats Julia Avila. Very close fight. Eubanks, though, more strikes, more takedowns. Takedowns really, I think, were what cemented this one for her, keeping Avila off the feet, because Avila did look good when she was striking. She was coming forward, throwing the pressure, but Eubanks shut it down with takedowns and was able to put things in her side the whole contest. So hats off to Eubanks. She got a solid win there and utilized her whole MMA game to pick up a win. And one that we got wrong, it was a debut fight, but got it wrong nevertheless. Kevin Kroom locks up a guillotine choke on Roosevelt Roberts 31 seconds into the fight. Not much to really say. Kroom looks like a great talent, explosive, got some killer instinct. I'm looking to see more out of him because he did defeat a spectacular fighter. Could be a fluke, who knows? But Roosevelt Roberts is not really a joke. He's a good fighter, and I was surprised to see Kroom put him down that quickly, or out. The next one we got right, debut fight. Alexandre Romanov defeats Roque Martinez. Martinez looked way too out of shape to be in there, if I'm honest, and Romanov proved that he is a better talent at heavyweight and picks up an arm triangle in the second round. And one that we got, let's see, was this correct? Okay, it ended up being right. So the Brock Weaver Frivola fight was canceled, so we had called Weaver in that one, but once it switched over to Turner, we called Turner because the numbers switched around, obviously because the fighter changed. And so Jalen Turner is the call in this one. He ends up picking up a win at catchweight, gets a submission rear naked choke in the second round, but I didn't think Weaver looked very good throughout the entire fight, and Turner, I think, had his number the whole way. And the last two I did not actually see, but Brian Barberina defeats Anthony Ivy. We called this one incorrectly. I had Ivy in this one. He was outstruck 2-1, despite the fact Ivy did score 5 takedowns, so I just have to assume he didn't do enough damage there, but 5 takedowns is quite a bit. And then in the last contest, Mazo does defeat Justine Kish, and that's a win for us. Mazo over Kish, gets a submission rear naked choke in the third round and picks up a solid victory. So like I said, we went to 5-7, just missed the 50% mark. Probably could have done a little better. There were some really, really close calls here. That Eubanks fight goes a little differently. The Herman fight goes differently. And Angela Hill goes a little differently. We're really successful as opposed to being just a bit under 50%. But that is the fight game. Everything is a razor's edge of margin. It's certainly a game of inches if there ever was one. Let's look forward, though. Let's get into the next contest. Here's that part of the show. All right, so let's get into this next card by starting with the main event. Although, like I said earlier, this card is Stack City. It does get a little weaker towards the bottom, but it's a great card overall. Honestly, could be worthy of a pay-per-view in a lot of ways. I mean, there have been some weaker pay-per-view cards, in all honesty, so this is a really good fight night. To start out, though, Colby Chaos Covington, I don't know. He's a little more like a MAGA Covington at this point. But regardless, he's taking on Tyron, the chosen one, Woodley. And Tyron Woodley is in an advanced age, and we haven't seen him fight all that well recently, especially in his loss to Usman and his loss to Burns, which was really, really one-sided. The last time we saw Woodley turn up was when he fought Till, which was his last title defense, and he honestly did really well. But I think his eyes have come off the prize recently. His rap career, his other sports ventures. He's been on a game show. I think the Titans. It's done by The Rock. He's got his hands in a lot of different pots. He's got his irons in a lot of different fires. And I think it's too many things. And I see Covington picking up a win here. Not only is he the younger guy, with, some great wins under his belt. Besides having lost to Usman, which was a dogfight, not like the one-sided affair that Woodley had with him, I think that Covington has the skills, has the tools, whether you like him or not, which I'm not the biggest fan of him, if I'm honest, or his persona, at least. I like it to a degree, but I don't like it if it's real, I guess you could say. I like his heel identity from a professional wrestling perspective. The more he embodies that is actually who he is, the bigger piece of shit he is, in my personal opinion. But as long as it's all an act, I'm okay with it. Anyways, I'm off the track here. I think that Covington, honestly, his striking is phenomenal. His output is phenomenal. And we know Woodley doesn't really he used to not get tired. Let's talk about that for a second. He used to not get tired. But I think Usman and Burns wore on him. And if Covington can treat him the way he treated Lawler in the octagon, I cannot see Covington coming away with anything but a W. I think he's going to be the victor in this one. I think his wrestling is superb. It's probably better, honestly, than Woodley's. I think his striking output is phenomenal. It's twice what Woodley's is. And besides Woodley catching him with a flurry of shots and knocking him out, which is, the way he put down Lawler, I do not see this fight going any other way. I think it's going to be a 5-round fair, or it's going to be Covington picking up a win in the third or later. I don't see this thing going out early unless it's just a magnificent punch by Woodley that does catch him on the chin. Either way, though, the pick is Covington. He's the pick in this contest. All right, moving on to the next one. We have Donald Cerrone taking on Nico the Hybrid Price. And in this one, I'm a big Cowboy fan. Who isn't at this point? But speaking about guys of advanced age, Cowboy is now 37 years old. He's a year younger than Woodley, but he's old. He's lost 4 in a row. His last win was against Al Iaquinta. He's lost to Ferguson, Gaethje, McGregor, and Pettis. So, we look at his body of work. The guy has great wins. He's had a hell of a career. But I'm sorry, I do not see him beating a guy like Nico Price. Nico Price, first off, is a natural 170. Cowboy just doesn't cut weight to make 170. He's more, Cowboy is the real natural 170, right? You might walk around there. Price could probably fight at 185 if you really wanted to, right? And so I think the size advantage is going to be there for Price. Now, height-wise, Cerrone actually does have an inch of height on him. But if you look at the broadness and the size, the bone structure of Price, I think honestly he's too big. It's going to be like when Darren Till fought Cerrone and threw him around the cage, okay? He also has a 3-inch reach advantage. He hits like a goddamn Mack truck. As long as he can stay out of the submission game of Cerrone, which is super high level. I know Price has some submission game of his own, but if he can stay on the feet, I don't see how Cerrone loses this one. Unless Cerrone, the guy finds steam later on in the fight. If Price somehow doesn't put him away early, doesn't keep him on the back foot, Cerrone does find ways to win, but I honestly don't think he's going to find a way to win in this one, and I think it's going to be 0-5, and I think that honestly we're coming towards the end of his career at this point. Will this be his last fight? Honestly, probably not, but we'll see how things play out for him going forward. Either way, the call is Nico the Hybrid Price. All right, moving on to the next one, a real hype train for sure. Khamzat Chimaev takes on Gerald GM3 Meerschaert. And in this one here, I'm going to go with Khamzat. However, keep in mind that the way he's won all of his UFC fights thus far kind of put him with some wacky numbers. He has crazy high striking because he smashed guys. His takedowns are also stellar. His submission game is stellar. Everything looks stellar because he hasn't fought real competition yet. So this is a grain of salt situation from a pure statistics standpoint. GM3 is 31-13. Khamzat's 8-0 professionally. So, over the bigger span of time, we can't look at Khamzat's numbers through the same lens. Now, with that being said, I still think Khamzat is actually going to win. I think that Meerschaert isn't performing to his full potential recently. He's been a real win-loss guy. Lost to Holland, beats Giles, loses to Anders, beats Deron Wynn, then loses to Ian Heinisch. He's just back and forth. And he should be due for a win, but I don't think he is, unless he, maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he really is going to go out there and try to put it on this guy who doesn't have that much experience. If he can last somehow into the later rounds, we can see what kind of gas tank Chimaev has, and maybe that's his pathway to victory. We'll see what happens here. There's just not a lot of information on Khamzat. His stats are very swayed to the positive side right now. If I were to, put him up against anyone, he would be the winner, basically at this point. So just keep that in mind. his stats are really off. And one thing just in the back pocket, Mearshart does have the 2-inch reach advantage. Not that I think that's going to be a huge factor here, but he has the experience. He has a little bit of the reach advantage, and he does have, again, the real experience. It's just, can he leverage that? He's had a hard time leveraging it to put back-to-back victories together, and so I'm inclined to say that I do not see him winning, which leaves Khamzat on to Damian Maia at that point, which I think will be much better competition. But hopefully Mearshart can show that this guy, is not going to have the easiest time running through the division or both divisions. This was actually a 185-pound contest. He'll be going to 170 against Maia. So this is going to be very interesting. I'd love to see this guy climb both divisions. It's always fascinating when you have a guy that can steamroll opponents. And so we'll see what he's really made of, because this will be his first real test in the UFC, at least at 185 pounds. So we'll see how things play out. But we are ultimately picking Chimaev. All right, the hits just keep on coming because we have Johnny Walker taking on Ryan Superman Spann. And in this one here, my heart was honestly with Spann, but as I crunched out the numbers, we ended up siding with Walker here. Now, I know he's on a 2-fight slide, but the numbers still shake out for him. He had lost to Krylov, lost to Anderson, and I think that he, is able to get his hype train back on track at this point. However, my heart of hearts, I don't know how he's going to beat Spann, but we've seen explosiveness out of this guy. The way he beat Ledet, the way he beat Serkinov with the flying knee. I mean, he has the ability to get wins. I hope that shoulder surgery hasn't derailed some of his talent when he screwed himself up in the octagon by dancing around, because this guy was a big hype train before Khamzat. He was a guy we were talking about fighting John Jones, or at least it looked like it, because he was winning in such spectacular fashion. I don't know if he's be able to get back on that hype train, though. Ryan Spann would love to rob it from him, and he is a hell of a talent. The guy is amazing himself, but we will see how things play out. Bear in mind, Spann, 4-fight winning streak, or even longer right now. Let's actually look this up a little further. I only have his last few fights up here. Here we are, Ryan Spann. Let's pull him up real quick. He's actually on a, holy shit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-fight win streak dating back to LFA. He did lose on the Dana White Contender Series Season 1, but hasn't lost since then, so this guy is on an amazing trajectory. It's just that we've seen great things out of Walker, so we'll see how things play out. I'm a little bit torn on this call. I actually think Walker's going to be able to win, but he did only get a split decision win over Sam Alvey, which is somebody I probably would have projected him being able to beat more handily. So, hey, we'll see how things play out. Ultimately, Walker is the pick. In the next one, we going to talk about Mackenzie Dern and Rhonda Marcos. So in this one, it's Dern. I think it's pretty straightforward, but there's some controversy around her right now, and I'll just talk about it real quick. So supposedly her husband got into a fight with her coach. I'm not sure which gym she's at right now. I think she was at Black House last. But supposedly got into a fight with her coach. She left the camp, and so now she's been, training somewhere else. So I'm not sure how derailed that is for her. She has a lot of good talent around her. She could definitely go work, go train almost any gym in the world. Or work with almost any coach. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. But there was some controversy leading up in this camp. And so we'll see how things end up playing out here. But either way, Dern is the pick. I think she's a great talent. Marcos is honestly 10-9. Dern has proven herself in the UFC. She's only lost to Hebus, who is looking amazing right now. Otherwise, a win over Cyphers, Cooper, and Yoder. So I expect her to get a win over Marcos. But there was some controversy coming into this one. All right, this next one here at middleweight is also a phenomenal contest. Kevin Holland is taking on Darren the Dentist Stewart. And so in this one here, I like Holland. I mean, it's hard to ignore what is a solid 7-inch reach advantage and some phenomenal power. Bear in mind, though, Stewart also throws some big bombs. It's just that I think with the reach advantage, we're going to have Holland be able to stay away from the power of Stewart. He has the size, he has the frame, I think, to do that. But this is a guy that does swing heavy, so I think it's going to come down, honestly, to Darren Stewart being able to work his skill set inside versus Holland stay on the outside. But he also has some great power himself. They're both on good fight win streaks, 3 on the side of the Dentist, 2 on the side of Kevin Holland. We'll see how things play out, though. Ultimately, we are going with Kevin Holland, though. All right, moving on to the next contest. We have Mirsad Bektik taking on Eduardo Garagori. I believe that's the name. And in this one here, we haven't seen a lot out of Garagori. He has one win over Bandonai, but we've seen some really good wins by Bektik. Now, he's lost to some great talent in Josh Emmett and Dan Ige in his last 2 outings, but I think he's going to bounce back here. I think that he's going to look good against Garagori, who we just don't have a lot of information on and hasn't looked really spectacular yet in the UFC. Maybe he will with more time, but coming off his loss to Ramos, I think that honestly Bektik's going to get back to his winning ways here. He's the pick in this featherweight matchup. All right, the next one here, we're going to have a ladies flyweight matchup, and then we're going to have Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Amara Romero Barella. And despite Barella training over at American Top Team and, looking halfway decent, she's on a 3-fight slide. I mean, actually, it's halfway decent. What the hell am I talking about? She has four losses in the UFC here recently. Casey, De La Rosa, Murphy, win over Santos, and lost to Shakagian. Now, we haven't seen really great stuff yet out of Silva, but she does look better. She did beat Robertson, lost to Moroz, and I think, honestly, she'll end up picking up a win here. It's hard to say, though. I mean, you got a 12-8 fighter going up against one that's 6-1, hasn't had a whole lot of experience. As long as Silva's able to get inside of the reach advantage of Barella, I think she'll be fine. Bear in mind, though, that Barella is trained at a very high level over at American Top Team, and nothing against Silva's gym, but that is some of the best in the biz. So, honestly, I see Silva winning this one, but we'll see how it plays out. All right, this next one here, we have a near unknown guy in David Dvorak, the Undertaker, taking on Jordan Espinosa. So Espinosa has looked good in his last outing, unanimous decision on Mark De La Rosa. However, did get a couple losses against Schnell and Perez. Now, I think he's honestly back to his winning ways, though, in this fight. Dvorak has been on an impressive fight winning streak. He's 18-3, and he hasn't lost since 2012. But he only has had one fight in the UFC. He was never on the Dana White Contender Series. I don't know. You know what? This is really going to be a tough call. I'm siding with Espinosa here because we have the numbers, we have the stats to back it up. But he has lost to really potent individuals and guys like Schnell and Perez. So depending if Dvorak can come out of the chute hard, he can definitely put down Espinosa. I just have no doubt in it. However, we'll see how things play out. Ultimately, though, going with Espinosa in this contest. All right, the next one here, we can have Randy the Zohan Costa, great fight name, taking on Journey Newsom. And in this one here, I like Randy Costa. And there's not a whole lot to go on. A lot of these guys recently, there just isn't a lot to go on. But he had a loss to Brandon Davis, got put down in rear naked choke, came back, knocked out Boston Sam in 2 minutes 15 seconds, looked really good in the Cage Titans promotions, was only shutting guys down with punches via TKO or KO, and I think he's going to come into this contest against Newsom, who has been knocked out once in his career. Hasn't been for a while, though. It was last knocked out in 2016. But after a loss to Ramos and a no contest Pilarte, I don't think, honestly, that Newsom's going to get it done here. I think he's going to pick up an L to Randy Costa. He is the pick. All right, before we get to the debuters, we have one more fight. We have Mr. Highlight Andre Uhl taking on Erwin the Beast Rivera. And in this one here, I like Uhl. I think he's a phenomenal-looking talent. Great win over Jonathan Martinez. It was a hard-fought victory. It was definitely a split decision. But I think Uhl here looks good. I think he looks like a great talent. And despite a win in the UFC by split decision as well for Erwin Rivera, I don't see him getting it done here. He did lose to Chikadze, and there's not enough to really go on, I think, at this point in this guy's career. But ultimately, I'm still going with Uhl in this one. He is going to be the call for Saturday. Then in the last couple of contests here, we're going to have, let's see here, where is Jessica Rose Clark? There we are. Jessica Rose Clark and Sarah Alpar. In this one, I'm going with Clark, although it is very close. Alpar does look halfway decent coming in here with 3 straight wins and one in the Dana White Contender Series. So that one's going to be close, but I am ultimately going with Jessica Rose Clark. And the next one, we have Derek Minor taking on TJ Laramie. TJ Laramie looked phenomenal in Dana White Contender Series. However, I'm still going to go with Minor here. Minor's submission talent is too good to pass up. He's 1-21 with 2 decisions. So that's 1 knockout, 21 submissions, and 2 decisions over his 24 wins. Does have 11 losses, 8 of them being via submission. So as much as he likes to play the submission game, he's also lost quite a bit via via submission. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm still going to go with Minor in that one. I think that he can beat Laramie, but Laramie is an excellent fighter himself, and he has some submission talent as well. with 2 submissions over his 12 wins. We'll see how that one plays out. And then the last one here, we are going to have Tyson Nam taking on Jerome Rivera. Tyson Nam had to have his last fight canceled. He's going up against the Renegade Rivera. And in this one here, I do like the Renegade. He's coming off a solid win, Dana White Contender Series back on August 4th against Luis Rodriguez. And I think he's going to be able to carry his winning ways into the next one against Tyson Nam. So we'll see how these fights play out. But let's go over them one more time. Covington, Price, Chimaev, Walker, Dern, Holland, Bektik, Silva, Espinosa, Costa, Uhl, Clark, Minor, and Rivera to round things out. All right, so I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of the Fighting Spirit Podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, please reach me at fightingspiritpodcast@gmail.com. You also can get in touch with me on Twitter at MMAFightPick01. And, of course, there's Facebook, YouTube. You know the drill. Go there and leave some comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas. You know what you'd like to ask. Also, I'd like to point out there's a Patreon. There's a description down below if you'd like to support the show in any way. I do appreciate that, and I look forward to you making a donation to the show to help keep it running. It's always something that I want to thank from the bottom of my heart for anybody that does, or at least does consider supporting the show. So, we'll be back with another fight in retrospective. Now we'll be looking forward to the pay-per-view, though. So next week is going to have the, here we are. Adesanya versus Costa fight, as well as Blachowicz versus Reyes. Those are really the best fights on the card. It's actually not quite finished yet, if I had to guess. So it'll be a solid fight because we have 2 title matches. But overall, I'm not sure how that one's going to play out. I'll crunch it up. Obviously, I'm not ready to make any calls at this point. But both of them do look exciting, albeit with just kind of shallow rest of the cards, in my opinion. I think this overall card this week is more stacked, in my opinion, than next week's UFC 253 card. So we'll see how things go with that one. There's not much else to talk about, though. Home Aldana hasn't come together. Ortega Jung is coming up, but there's not much to talk about there. And then, obviously, Nurmagomedov Gaethje, that's the biggest one, I think, of the year, taking place on the 24th, which that one is going to take place during the middle of the day. That's, I think, going to be like a 2 p.m. card, the way they're talking now. It'll be on Fight Island, all that stuff. But we'll talk about that one as it gets closer. It's a little over a month away. I'm looking forward to all of these fights. And until I speak with you again next time, happy fight picking.